Hi, this is Father Andrew Ritchie, and you're listening to Catholic Inspiration, a podcast from my website at studyprayserve.com. These homilies and presentations form part of my ministry as a Catholic priest of the Diocese of Superior, and now I invite you to listen to some Catholic inspiration. The question for this Monday conversation is simple. How's your Lent going? In a real sense, it's a basic question just to kind of check in, a Mid-Lent gut check that says, hey, how's it going? Is it going the way you planned? Is it going as well as you planned? Or does there need to be a change, an adjustment, a course correction? Now, as we look at this, let's talk about this in two camps. How is it going? If you answer that and say, it's going great, it's the best Lent ever, then the answer obviously is awesome. Pour fuel on that fire and make it burn as hot and as vibrant and as powerfully as you can. If you're having a great Lent, this is a great time. We're halfway through it. We've got 19 days. We're in the 20 days to go to Easter. Take this time right now and say, how can I just tighten it up even a little bit more? How can I take the good momentum, the energy, the vibrancy, the passion and power? How can I take this spiritual focus and make it like a laser beam focused right on Jesus? Because if we're off to a good start, if the things that we had planned are working well and it's clicking, you have that sense when there's a good rhythm, when you're in your stride, like, I like this, it's working, it's helping me, it's really helping me connect with the Lord and with others. That's a great affirmation, and it's also a good insight. If we find something that works for us, a lot of times we might just take it for granted. And I would say just the opposite. Recognize the gift that this insight brings, that, hey, I have found something that's really, really influencing my spirituality, my relationships, my connection to the Lord. Don't take that for granted, but rather say, I need to remember this because this works. And if I find something that works, I want to stay with it. I want this to become perhaps a regular part of my life long after Lent is done. If we find something that really just, it meets our attitude, our perspective, the way we look at the world, we have to find that thing that's just right. In many respects, it's kind of like exercise. You know, our doctors always tell us we're supposed to get exercise. But that doesn't mean that one exercise is perfect for everybody. Some people like to run. Some people like to walk or hike. Some people like to go to the gym or swim. You see, the thing is, you got to find the exercise that works for you. And similarly in the spiritual life, to find what works for you. If this Lent is off to a great start and you have found something that works, take that as an insight that says, I better stick with this, or at least consider how I might incorporate this into the long run for how I'm going to live my life, how I'm going to live my spiritual life, and integrate it into the other aspects of my life. If you're off to a great Lent, if you can say to the question, how's it going? Great. And this is a perfect time to put more fuel on that and say, how can I incorporate this much, much longer in a more systematic, integrated way with my whole life? Okay, now that's the one side. Well, let's look at the other side. If I ask, how is it going? And you go, I had good intentions. I really had a plan. I thought it was going to be great. Or, well, I kind of wasn't prepared. Regardless of what we started with on Ash Wednesday, if we kind of are halfway through Lent and we're going, it's more of a fizzle than a fire, don't give up. You know, there's a sneaky thought that can often lurk in the human heart, and the devil plays on this. It's this. It's like, oh, well, I didn't do very good, or I failed, or I messed up, so it's over. That's a terrible lie. That's a terrible lie to find a place in our hearts. Just the opposite is true. When we fall short, when we make a mistake, when we're not getting started on the right foot, rather than beat ourselves up, that's exactly the time to look right back to Jesus and say, okay, Lord, I need your help. I need your grace. I need your strength. I turn to you. That the minute we recognize our shortcoming, the minute we acknowledge that it didn't go the way we planned, and then we recognize that, okay, I need extra help, extra grace, extra strength. I'm looking at the cross in my own house as I say this. As we look to the cross of Jesus and say, okay, Lord, help me. Help me to find my way back. It's that admission and acknowledgement that can be a tremendous and powerful jumpstart midway through Lent. That if our gut check says it didn't go the way I wanted it to, do not give up, but rather kick it back into gear and say, I've got 20 days between now and Easter, and I'm going to spend them doing one thing really well. You might want to look at, what can I do? What can I intentionally do for these next 3 weeks? We have this current week between now the fourth Sunday of Lent to the fifth Sunday. Then we've got the next week between fifth Sunday and Palm Sunday. And then we've got Holy Week. So we've got 3 weeks. And in those 3 weeks, what is it? What one thing can I do to reclaim this Lent? To just plant my flag on this piece of time that I have and say, I'm going to live this. I'm going to make this happen. I'm going to commit my life to this. Because when we can do that, and when we can anchor it, and we can say, you know what, Lord, I have picked something. It didn't start the way I wanted, but I'm going to finish strong. And that's a great principle to remember, friends. It's not how we start that counts. It's how we finish. You know, startings are important and they're crucial, and when we can start well, it really makes things easier. But you know what? You can have a great, strong start, but if you don't cross the finish line, it really doesn't matter. So what I'd like to point out and propose is this. Take a look right now at what's going on around you and say, okay, what's one thing I can do today to reclaim this Lent and finish strong? Now, traditionally, within the season of Lent, you know, we started off on Ash Wednesday with that great reading that says prayer, fasting, and almsgiving. These are 3 classic Lenten disciplines that can dramatically, profoundly shape our lives. So maybe we're going to want to look at one of those 3 and think about what they mean. Prayer, our spiritual life; fasting, what we're doing with our bodies; and then almsgiving. How do we help reach out and support the needs of others, especially those who are suffering, less fortunate, or in need? Let's start with prayer. Is there something you can reclaim in your prayer life right now? Is there something? And maybe that means going to Mass, daily Mass, Eucharistic adoration. Maybe that means getting to confession. Maybe that means taking time, if you've got a prayer devotion, a little prayer book, a daily scripture reading. Maybe it means that every day between now and Easter, I'm going to make sure that I say my daily prayers, either when I get up in the morning or before I go to bed at night. But to do one thing there, one thing that says, I'm going to draw closer to you, Jesus. Lord, I'm going to do this one thing, and I'm going to do it for 20 days. I'm going to put my effort into it. I'm going to give this focus because I'm going to reclaim my Lent for this back half of the season. That aspect of our spiritual lives, you know, there's so many great things available in Lent. Pick one. Pick one and run with it. Let's talk about the second area, though, fasting. See, this particular tradition, you know, to really watch what we eat is particularly powerful and compelling in Western culture. We eat so well. On one hand, I mean, too well. But also, we have so much junk food around us. So many things that are really luxuries. But those luxuries can sometimes become the normal food that we eat. And to be able to step back and say, you know what, for the next 3 weeks, I really am going to watch it. I really am going to push away from, maybe it's sweets, or maybe, you know what, it's just, I'm going to go real light on one meal. And I'm going to take that meal, I'm going to just make sure that I say a prayer during that meal, or I'm going to take the money from that meal that I would have spent, and I'm going to put it in the rice bowl, or I'm going to give it to the poor. But I'm going to tie something to my stomach with some sort of outward show, Lord, I love you and I love your people. The discipline of fasting means that we're recognizing that our bodies can be a tremendous and powerful way that helps shape and focus our hearts. When we're feeling that sense of hunger, when we're recognizing that, oh yeah, I could have eaten that, but I chose not to, we're exercising our free will. And in using our free will, we say, Lord, I choose you. I follow you. I seek you. And therefore, the discipline of fasting helps us, body, mind, and soul, to look towards Jesus. It really is a total package, if you will, that we're taking our bodies, because we feel the hunger, and instead we're directing it through our souls to the Lord. We are, as human beings, this hybrid of spirit and body. So we're just bringing our bodies into the equation as we follow the Lord. Fasting, if you find a way that you really want to make special, and again, this depends on your unique health situation, it depends on your lifestyle, your job, your work, your family involvement, but if you find something here, stay with it. You got 20 days. The last one is almsgiving. We know firsthand that there are people around us who are suffering, people who are financially strapped, people who are poor, people who do not have the basic needs of food, clothing, and shelter. And if you're listening to me right now, chances are you have resources, which is why you can even hear this podcast. The fact is there a way that we can give a little bit of what we have to help alleviate the suffering of somebody else? And does that mean that maybe we dig a little, not just out of maybe our loose change, but maybe we go to our wallet and we honestly say, you know what, I don't need this luxury. So I'm going to make a gift. I'm going to make a gift to help that food shelf. I'm going to make a gift to help that local society of St. Vincent de Paul. I'm going to make that gift to help the groups and people who are helping others. And you know what? Maybe, just maybe, I'm going to not just give my money. Writing a check is relatively easy. But you know what? I'm going to walk down to that soup kitchen. I'm going to walk down to that shelter. I'm going to walk down to that Society of St. Vincent de Paul, and I'm going to say, hey, I'm also going to help you for an hour or two. Can you put me to work? Because you know what? Sometimes it's one thing to say I'm helping those who are suffering, but you know what? When I encounter the suffering face to face, it touches a part of my heart in a different way. When I can alleviate somebody else's suffering by being directly present to them, that takes it one step further. And that also means, you know, sometimes we don't have to look too terribly far to see the people who are suffering. Maybe you have a neighbor or a family member who could really use help with some basic chores. Maybe you've got somebody in your life who's really hitting a rocky patch. And maybe you want to direct some of your financial help to maybe directly or maybe anonymously just say, hey, look, I know you guys are in a tough spot. This is just to get you over the hump. Whatever it is, almsgiving recognizes that we've been given a gift of some sort of resource. It could be financial, it could be material, it could be our time, it could be our skill. How can we share what we've been given to help somebody else? This becomes very personal. It also becomes very specific to your own special needs, skills, resources, and abilities. But think of this. If God gave each one of us these gifts, they're gifts. One day we're not going to need them anymore. And when we stand before the Lord and He asks, hey, what did you do with what I gave you? How did you build a beautiful life? And how did your life bring life to others? The concept of almsgiving is the way that we can stand before the Lord and say, I used what I had for this, Lord. This is how I shared what you have given to me. Because it's all gift, friends. It's all gift. We didn't ask for the talents and skills that we were given. But if we take them and we use them wisely and well, and we share them with others, then we become the blessing. A beautiful, beautiful blessing. Prayer, fasting, almsgiving. They're all powerful ways that we can make a difference. Powerful ways that we can share the gift of our lives. The invitation today. This is your Mid-Lent checkup. How's it going? If it's going great, wonderful. Keep putting fuel on that fire and remember what's working so you can use it long after Holy Week is done. And if it hasn't gone well, don't give up. Instead, get back up and get back in the game and say, okay, Lord, I'm going to finish strong. And I'm going to pick one thing to do really well these last 3 weeks of Lent so that when Easter comes, I can say, yeah, it was a slow start, but it was a strong finish. May this be your best Lent ever. May this be a Lent where when we get to Easter, we really do sing out with joy that the Lord is risen. He's risen indeed. And that our hearts, filled with God's grace, can share the gift of our lives with one another as we grow closer to Jesus and the people He has placed in our lives. God bless you all.
Hi, this is Father Andrew Ritchie. If you find these podcasts at all helpful, please feel free to pass them on to your family, friends, and loved ones. You can like me on Facebook, and by all means, word of mouth is the best advertising of all. As always, you can find me at studyprayserve.com or on iTunes at Catholic Inspiration.